Okay, people, March 10th, 2016. Do you see what's going on here? It says, sit tight. Your video edits are being processed. Come back to this page in a little while. I'm not editing anything, people. This is not me. I'm actually looking for a video right now. There it is right there. Do you see that? I'm looking for a certain video that at this point I can't seem to find. And of course you can see the date, 2009. Something or somebody is editing my video.
American boy.
See that?
Let me get away this weekend. Take me to Broadway. Let's go shop. It just be wrong. Wait a minute.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, people, as you can see, somebody is editing my videos behind my back. That's not me editing old videos. No. I'm talking. Please don't turn that on right now. Don't distract me. I don't want to do this very long. What's going on with the city here, people? Happened in 2009. When I used to live in that fourplex that had a grow-op. With the crazy electrician that had an addiction to an opiate. And the hydro was cut off at the pole. Either between the fire department, city police, or the city. It was one of the three. Somebody cut off the hydro at the pole in October of 2009. And it was offline for 12 days or something, 12, 13 days. John was there, Joan was there, the kids were there. The woman next door had small kids. The whole place got shut down. And the owner of that house blamed me for that. I had no clue that the hydro was going to get cut off the pole. I don't even know why it got cut off the pole, other than the crazy electrician left live wires open on the other side of the duplex where the woman panicked, right? And I guess she called the fire department or something like that. And they came in, and because they were live wires, it had to do with a fire alarm that he left with live wires hanging, right? Because they were being assholes, right? Because I almost got electrocuted in that place when I first moved in. I've mentioned this before. Please don't distract me, okay? We moved in December, right? And when we got there, right away from the get-go, one part of the house, well, fourplex on the main floor where we were, which was kind of John's bedroom, because it was a big room it had its own independent washroom, and it was connected to the kitchen. And anyway, it had no hydro. And the bathroom, the main bathroom, had no hydro, right? So I'm taking baths in the dark, John's in the dark, right? And this went on for weeks. In the meantime, in the laundry room, it was really moldy and smelly. Like really moldy and really smelly. And they had a really old, moldy, all wet and gooey and moldy and smelly dresser down there. And anyway, one day, being there after about 3-4 weeks, the hydro came back on in John's room and in the main bathroom. It was on for about a week or something stupid like that. I don't know what it was. It's been so long, right? And then all of a sudden it went out again. And of course we're trying to, we're talking to the landlord. We're saying, like, we have no hydro in these rooms. We need hydro. Personally, I think the place was bugged. I think they had some sort of spyware in there, people. They were listening to our conversations. because when she would show up, you know, she'd drop her little cues, right, as if, you know, how would she know how to use those choice words in terms of what I was talking about, you know, John and I were talking about and all this. This was before Joan moved in, right? Gaslighting, that's what it is, people, right? And then one day, all of a sudden, the laundry room was flooding. I went down because the laundry room was, we were on the main floor, then it was like the basement suite, and then it was like an attached shed that had the laundry room in it, and then there was another shed, and then on the other side was a laundry room for the other side. Well, on my side, it was flooding, and I couldn't figure out where this water was coming from. So, of course, I panicked, right? Because the water was getting high, right? And I ran around to the other side, to the other laundry room, and I run in, and as soon as I run in, what do I see? I see those white plastic pipes. One of them had broke off, was pointing directly at the dryer, spraying water at the dryer as the dryer was on people, right? And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Like, it's amazing I never got electrocuted. So I ran around to the front, trying to bang on the door. You know, there's a flood. You know, something's going to catch on fire pretty soon. Anyway, long story short, I had to go back in there myself, people, and screw around with these. I didn't know which one to turn off because there's nobody there to help me, right? He didn't answer the door. And when he did finally show up, he didn't know what the hell to do. But by that time, I had already got it pretty much figured out. And I ended up turning off the water. And thank God I didn't get electrocuted. Right? So, needless to say, the hydro in John's room never got fixed yet properly. Right? Because it was going in and out. And so I phoned up the city, people. That's what I did. I phoned up the city. I said, look, I don't know what to do. You know, there's some hydro issues going on. I almost got electrocuted. You know, what can I do? They said, well, if you pay $65, we'll come in and we'll do an inspection on the hydro. You do it through the hydro department. I said, okay. So I talked to John. We agreed that would probably be the best thing to do because we were getting nervous by this time. Like, you know, going into the second, third month, I don't remember. But, it, you know, it was moving along anyway, right? And we were getting nervous because not only was I in a position of almost being electrocuted, you know, the hydro issue wasn't being dealt with, right? Because they were ignoring us. And kind of throwing that same thing around, if you don't like it, you can move. It started pretty early. If you don't like it, you can move. We had just moved in. And it costs money to move people. Right? So anyway, we paid the $65 to the city. City came in. They picked up on something right from the get-go. Next thing you know, there was this no-stop order posted on my door. Like stop work order. No, it was a no-stop work order. Like they weren't allowed to do any kind of work unless they got the permission from the city to do electrical work. And because they were on a hunt, because they knew what was in there, they just didn't have authority to get into that moldy shed that was connected right next to the laundry room. Long story short, it was a grow up. But the owners never got, can you remove yourself? The owners never got caught with it because the city gave them enough time to remove the paraphernalia that happened in the middle of the night. So in the meantime, that owner that used to drive up with a Hummer in the middle of the night, whether it was her husband or whether it was her. During the day, she drove a meek van, right? Was the perfect housewife with the kids. But at night, she was a gangster bitch because she drove up with this Hummer at 4 o'clock in the morning. Brand new spanking Hummer. And if it wasn't her, it was her husband. Well, her brother, who lived on the other side in the basement with his mother, used to have dealers come to the house every day because he had an opiate problem too. He used to climb the roof, throw condoms over the edge, and in the bathroom, the vent didn't have a cover on it, so I wouldn't be surprised that he wasn't spying down that vent hole as people were sitting on the toilet going to the washroom. I mean, this is what we had to deal with, right? So in the meantime, I'm talking. So in the meantime, the city was now telling them that they found some hydro problems. They seen the Mickey Mouse shit going on. And then because there was problems, they wanted to go to the other side. So I guess eventually the landlords had to agree to that, which they didn't want to have happen, right? So in the end, nothing ever got fixed, right? It didn't. I lived there for almost a year, people. Nothing really got fixed because they kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. The city would show up. It wasn't being done. You know, they'd say, well, you know, we can give them another notice. And it wasn't being done. Wasn't being done. So by this time, there was a few little things being done because their time was running out. What was being done downstairs in the laundry room, places like that, is that crazy electrician came in and just started banging out the freaking walls. Just tore out all the walls because all the wiring behind the walls, getting mad at me saying it's my fault, even though behind the walls it was full of freaking mold, right? Because they're going to have to rewire the place, right? I don't know what was going on the other side. I just know that, like I said, when this crazy electrician was on the other side, he left open hanging live wires for the fire alarm, hanging live, where that tenant got panicky and ended up calling the fire department. Fire department showed up, police showed up, city showed up, 3 different freaking organizations showed up. Next thing you know it, I'm in the kitchen with John and Joan and the kids or whatever, and the hydro goes out. I didn't even know what was going on. I just know that all of a sudden the hydro went out. My fish died, my plants died. I had a picosmus that was probably about 8 inches long. Had it for years and years and years and years. I had, I can't remember what it's called, but it was a big fish about like this big, right? But they were warm water fish. So when the hydro went off, within the week or so, they died because the hydro was off for 12 days and it was October. It got to below 50 degrees inside. So here I am now scrambling around, right? I only knew one person really in the neighborhood, right? Because I was busy painting. I was painting their foyer, which when I moved in looked like some sort of hippie on some LSD had went in there and did all kinds of crazy crap. And I'm like, I can't live with this. So I painted it nice and white. It was a nice tall hall in the foyer, and I did all that. The back, I got pictures of this, people. The back was a porch that was unpainted. We painted it all, right? Climbed ladders, did the whole thing, right? I took out their garbage, their garbage was there when I first moved in. I planted a beautiful garden in the back. I tried to weed the front, in terms of taking out the weeds on their grass, whatever. So anyway, I'm the one person, I'm running around. If I'm not at a restaurant trying to get a thermos full of hot water, I'm going to this one other person to get hot water, right? And I had to take my younger kids, Tisha and Shmei, right? And I gave them to Mary, and I paid Mary to look after them for 10 days or whatever it was, because by the 3rd day it was just too cold for them to be there. So they went back to Gateway Apartments where Mary was living, and they stayed with Mary. And I gave Mary money and I gave her food while we were waiting for the hydro to come back on. Mary. Eventually, long story short, and Joan toughed it out, John toughed it out, I toughed it out, Marcaine toughed it out, and then eventually, they just refused to turn on the hydro. The owner, the mother, right, of I don't know who owned the house. I don't know if it was the daughter. I don't know if it was the mother. All I know is the mother had hydro going in through a hydro, not now, Andre, an extension cord from the neighbors. So she had hydro, but we didn't have hydro. And the woman next door with her 5 children didn't have hydro. So finally, by the 12th day or whatever it was, I went off to the city and I demanded, because I wasn't getting any results in terms of trying to phone people to get the hydro back on, right? And my house insurance wouldn't cover the cost of housing us in a hotel, because it was hard on John and Joan. They were old, right? Andre, please. We had a cooler for food, just a little milk and, you know, that kind of stuff. Everything else in my freezer, spoiled. I managed to take some things to that one woman that I did know, but half of what I owned spoiled in the freezer because I had a freezer full of food that just half of it was gone. Any hot water came either from a restaurant or from that woman who I didn't bother all the time because, you know, right? That's where I got the playhouse from. I bought that off of her before I moved in here because, you know, it was getting near the end and the landlords were saying, get out. And it was obvious they didn't want us there. And I tried hard to stay, right? You know, I tried to be positive people. I mean, if I would have known that $65 was going to get me kicked out, like, fuck. Like, seriously. But then I would have lived there for a whole year with a smelly, moldy grow up with my hydros going in and out of the building as I'm being paid for I was paying for that hydro. They were just jacking into my line, right? So I don't know what's worse. I don't know. I don't know what's worse. Staying quiet and being abused or saying something and paying for some help and being abused. Like, which one is worse? Okay. So anyway, after 12 days or whatever it was, freezing her asses off, you know, and it's amazing John and Joan didn't get sick, right? Kids weren't there, you know. I ended up going to City Hall. I demanded to see Diane Watts. I demanded to see her. I told him, I'm not leaving until I see her because this is bullshit. The hydro, nobody's turning the hydro, nobody from City Hall would take responsibility for the hydro being turned off. The cops wouldn't take responsibility. The fire department wouldn't take responsibility, and the city wouldn't take responsibility. Everybody sat up there and said, we don't know who did it. That's the response I got back from each department. Whether it was the fire department, I would phone and say, well, who turned off the hydro? I need the hydro back on. Well, we don't know. Well, you were there, but it wasn't us. If I phoned the cops, same response. If I phoned the city, we don't know. It could have been the cops. We don't know. Okay? I went to City Hall. I paid money, right, to get the printout on that file. And it was vetted, people. It was vetted, okay? You know what vetted means. They only allow you to see what they want you to see, right? And I'm pretty sure they didn't give me all the information because there was nothing to suggest what was going on, even though it was going on. Just like with this shit going on right now. Like I called out on Souk today. Where is the paperwork? What gives this man the right to come in here month after month for over a year? Well, not over a year. Based on the assumption of somebody complained. Oh, now the people that want to buy the house are complaining because they can't walk through the house and have it empty to visualize how they're going to move their stuff in and go plant some plants in the greenhouse. Right? So I wasn't getting the information from the city, even though I requested it and I paid for it. It just came back a few vetted pieces of paper that didn't give out anything significant in terms of who was responsible for cutting off that power on the pole, people, so that the whole fourplex shut right down. And of course, the mayor wouldn't see me, so I left a note. I said, please have it turned back on, blah, 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 blah. And sure enough, the next day, it was turned on. It was turned on, people. But I got evicted. And while I was there, you know, things weren't working correctly. Half the room wasn't working. You know, that guy was downstairs busting up the walls, right? He was smoking out of a glass pipe and left his broken, you know, those fluorescent light bulbs with the mercury in them, those new ones. He busted up a whole bunch of those downstairs in the basement. Right? Go away. Right? He busted up a whole bunch of those in the basement. He left his paraphernalia shit behind. Right? Tore out the walls, and it sat down there for for weeks. Right? So eventually, I just went down there and cleaned it up because I was concerned about the mercury. I didn't know what to think, you know, whatever. And then the landlady shows up and she says, well, why did you do that? I would have cleaned it up. I said, yeah, well, it's been like 3 weeks. So, you know, I just thought I'd do it and get it over with, right? Like, whatever, you know, and I'm living in a fucking fantasy land here thinking, you know, if I just hang in there, right, it will all get fixed and I can just live my life with my family and But no, they gave us an eviction notice to be out by the 15th of November, 15th of December. That's how I found this place. That's why when my landlady tells me if you don't like it, you can move, it really upsets me, and it just tears me apart. Because that's what that other woman treated me like. You don't like it, you can move. If you don't like the fact that you can't use those rooms with lights, if you go in the main bathroom, people. Not Uncle John's bathroom, but in the main bathroom. The one with the bathtub and everything. Uncle John had, I think, a bathtub in his too. It was just a smaller version of the main bathroom. The kids and I used the main bathroom. Uncle John had his own private bathroom, right? Which was better for John. And me. But there was no lights in there. And why should John be laying up in his bedroom with no lights for like months on end? And then all of a sudden have them come on for a couple of weeks and then go off again? To find out at some point down the line that it was a freaking grow up, and all those times that it was off, you were paying the hydro bill. And as they're saying, well, if you don't like it, you can move. So I don't know. And then the mother, the one that lived in the basement there, said it was my fault that she almost lost her house. My fault. Because I paid the $65 to find out why I almost got electrocuted. And why half the hydro in that, well, a quarter of the hydro on my side of the fourplex wasn't working for the majority of the time that I lived there. But it was the fact that I almost got electrocuted that really provoked it. Okay? So it was just a big cover-up, people. They got away with the grow-up. They got away with shutting off the power at the pole. Nobody took responsibility for that. They buried that file. They made sure nobody's seen that. They got away with getting me evicted, right? The landlord ended up having to rewire that whole place wasn't grounded. So not only did they have to ground the house in the correct manner, they put a temporary one on because it was so dangerous in terms of wiring, right? There was a temporary grounding. As soon as the city came in and they seen what the hell was going on, they made them do a temporary grounding. So they did the temporary grounding, but the main grounding didn't happen until they did the main work, and that was pretty much after I was gone. They were starting to do it near the tail end, but they wanted to make sure I got kicked out. So my instincts tell me that through the grapevine, my new landlords, these ones, probably knew something about that, and quite possibly had already prejudged me in terms of I was a bad person because I made that woman almost lose her house, even though she knew that what she was doing in terms of her legal grow-up, right, and her drug activity with her drug-addicted son, with his dealers coming up every night, people, they'd be rolling up at my house, giving him whatever he needed. And you know, it was very hard for me with my daughter because I was trying to get her on methadone. So it was hard to get her on methadone when I had dealers rolling up every fucking night, okay? And that was the reality of that place. Well, the people next door used to live in my place, used to walk right by my door, which you can see into, and just felt they could walk right back and forth, just do what they please. But then that's because they were involved with the grow-up too. It was just a little network within the community there, right? Everybody was making money and being shady. You know, you remember Navpreet's house. It was crazy. And because when I got here, and you know, the pipes started acting up within the first week, and by Christmas time I moved in. I rented the place in November, but I didn't move the family in until December 15th. I did clean up after myself at Navpreet's. I had my daughters help me because I felt it was important to teach them that no matter what, even though they might not be nice people, doesn't mean you can't be a nice person in terms of being responsible and doing the right thing in terms of cleaning up after yourself, right? So it was cleaner, it was in better shape than when I moved in terms of the foyer was painted, the long stairway with the 20-foot high freaking ceiling was painted because Riley brought me a ladder for that. Their back porch was painted, right? And all the garbage was removed, everything, right? Including their garbage, because I did that when I first moved in. And I move in here, and there's, conflict over this pipe and the leaky pipe out in the front, on the side of the house here, in the back, I'm sorry. And the next thing you know, my landlady's saying, if you don't like it, you can move. And that's exactly what Nav Preet used to say to me. If you don't like it, you can move. If you don't like the fact that Uncle John is sitting in a dark room and your bathroom is dark and you got to take a piss in the dark in the middle of the night, move. If you get electrocuted and you don't like it, right, move. If the laundry room is all smelly and moldy with a moldy freaking dresser in there to cover up the grow-up smell, if you don't like it, you can move. But I couldn't move, people. I didn't have any money to move. I just moved in. Right? So anyway, I feel like the city is getting us evicted again. Because they came in, they were supposed to help, they didn't. All they did was turn my landlords against me. Not that they were good landlords, because they weren't. Because they should never have put my family, children, and the people next to me that had children at risk in terms of having that shady grow up in that funky shed that they had connected to the laundry room with their Mickey Mouse wiring and their Mickey Mouse piping. Okay? That's not my fault. I didn't create that. It was that crazy electrician that was addicted to opiates and liked to smash light bulbs around. Okay? So anyway, this is the city's handiwork. Seriously. There is something else going on here besides the videos. Okay? The only thing I'm thinking is there's so many drug addicted people in Surrey with the opiates and that type of stuff that it's a big business. It's big business for somebody. Now, everybody driving a Hummer, does that mean that they're gangsters dealing and wheeling and you know what? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that somebody is making money off of this stuff. And not only are they making money off of this stuff, but they're infecting children, 11 and 10 and 12-year-olds, okay? That's why I want to leave Surrey when Andre gets to that age. Because I'm too scared. I'm too scared to have him get caught up in that drama. Because for the people that give these kids these types of drugs, they don't care, people. They don't care. All they care about is the next generation of addicts that they can keep on the run, use and abuse until they're dead. I feel like this is kind of like a cover-up. Right? Something else amiss here. Okay? Old school racism. Like, I think of my grandma. Grandma, don't talk to the blacks. Leave them alone. They got their own trouble. You go and you talk to them, you're going to have trouble. Go marry a nice white man. Just marry a nice white man and everything will be fine. If you try and help the blacks, your life will be miserable. Especially those ones in the States, she said. This is when I was 16 years old, people. I was 16 years old because I had already shown an interest in people with other ethnic heritages. My mother dated Punjabi men and whatever. My mother wasn't racist. Right? So maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. I just know I didn't want to marry a white man. At least at 16. So, my grandma, though, was very racist. Sometimes I think some of this is on with the housing market out here in terms of rentals and stuff. Especially when you're getting into the older generation. I don't think people like my grandma, she was a white woman, she didn't realize she was racist. She grew up with white privilege. She grew up with, a supremacist attitude because, she was white and, she got along through life fairly easy compared to, say, my landlords coming in from India in the initial stages of integrating as an ethnic group into Canada where racism was at its height. So as a protective measure, you know, every ethnic group has its own racist ideology. They try and deny it by saying, well, we're a minority, we can't be a racist, but that's not true. That's not true, right? So, you know, whether some of this, well, if you don't like it, you can move, is just, you know, that emotional baggage from back in the past, and it's just like a survival thing, you know, strongest of the fittest, or whatever, wherever it comes from, you know, it causes problems. Just like my grandma was a problem in terms of being so sheltered and wanting to cut herself off, and not participate in terms of being a solution to the social issues out there. She'd rather just be the problem and not admit that she was the problem. So anyway, regardless, city is, you know, out of control. Out of control. I don't need to make a complaint against these people over there, or over there, or over there, or 2 blocks away, or anywhere, people. Okay? In order for them to respond like the way they are responding against me. Okay? If my landlords are that adamant because they got 3 good reviews, 3 good offers, well, it probably has something with the fact that I told them that the house doesn't moan, doesn't groan, and doesn't creak. The foundation at this point is good. No guarantee that it's going to last, because the city refuses to do something with the influx of water that's coming not only from the neighbor, but it's coming from somewhere else. Because I've lived in this yard for 6 years. I know how much water travels through this yard. And we've had worse rain than what we've had in the last month and a half in the past. This is water from somewhere else. Now, whether it's maybe being done on purpose to cause more stress on me, which is a form of gaslighting, psychological warfare, you know, frustration, I don't know. I just know that they're not helping. They're trying to cover something up here. They're trying to protect themselves. You know, that's why he keeps, like, if you notice, every time he comes, he picks a new spot. Have you noticed that, people? He picks a new spot. And then he goes back to see, oh, well, now I have to start washing the toys there. What does it matter if they're old toys? What, another 2 more days of washing toys? Is that it? Huh? When I'm being told I need to be laying bricks out in the front because nobody wants to take any responsibility for the bullshit that's going on right now. Just like when they cut off the hydro at the pole, and Joan and John and myself and the kids were all stuck in this fourplex, right? With everybody mad at us because we blew their cover in terms of their grow-op, and we didn't even know it had a grow-op. Did we ask them to go get a fourplex and build a funky shed and put a moldy freaking dresser there to hide the smells of grow-op? And then rent it out to vulnerable families so that they can make a profit as they were stealing our hydro? Did we ask them to do that? I've been working on this yard for 6 years. I have video proof of what this yard, in terms of the ground, was like. Okay? I do. That's never going to change. That's never, ever, ever going to change. Ever. Ever. It's never going to change.